Alison Edgar MBE, who is known as the Entrepreneur's Godmother, with the second in our series of her webinars on getting to know your sales. So without further ado, I hand over to you. Alison, welcome.
Thank you so much. Hi everyone, I'm back. Before we start going into pillar 2 and the sales process, I want to share a wee story with you that happened this morning. So some of you may or may not know of a thing called Clubhouse. So Clubhouse is a new social media app and it's audio only, and you go into rooms and you have chats a wee bit like this, except we can't see anybody. And one of the women had asked a question to the panel. So again, a bit like this, there was maybe 200 or 300 in the room. There was the moderator panel, who are the people that are the experts, and they asked about mentorship. Now, mentorship is obviously something that's really quite passionate to me about, you know, coaching, mentorship, two different animals, but really helping you to get the best out of people. And a lot of people were saying, oh yeah, oh yes, I think it's great to have a mentor, and I think it is. But one of the things, and it feeds back to, you know, the chamber, the growth hub and the LEP. So I piped up and I said, like, wherever you're based, you will have a chamber of commerce that can help you. You will have a growth hub and you will have an LEP. There are things like the peer mentoring schemes. There are events like this that you can tap into that you don't have to pay for. And the message came back from this woman to say, thank you so much. I was just about to spend, right, are you ready? Everybody in the audience, I can't see you all. She was just about to spend £200,000 on mentoring. I'll repeat that figure, 200k. I don't know if you can see Stuart's face, but I can. So I think this is why it's really, really important. There's a lot of businesses out there who don't understand the value the chambers bring, the LEPs. And look at Stuart's face. The LEP.
I just want to tell everyone on the call, I'm available for mentoring.
So this is why it's really important you share these messages, because there are people out there who haven't heard of the chambers and are not aware of the programs that they bring and the growth hub. So that's how I thought it's really important I lead in with that, because even I was shocked. I had to read it twice and then send a message back and go, you sure you've put an extra zero in there? So let's teach you guys a little bit more about sales. I'm going to share the screen. Actually, now I can see just Stuart drinking his coffee, so I'm hoping that you can share. Hopefully you can all see the slide pack from the currents on the start. So Stuart, can you give me a thumbs up if you can see that slide pack? Good. So it's really interesting. The feedback from the first one on behaviours was outstanding. So thank you so much. I can see some people back for the second session, so it must have been quite good. The other thing, it will be interactive. So like the last one, we will be using menti.com. So if you've got access to a phone or another browser, we will be doing an interactive exercise to see where you're sitting with your sales process. We will also be doing an interactive fun game in the middle, and you'll be using the chat. So if you're not familiar with the chat function, make sure it's set to everyone. The girls from the chamber, either Olivia or Daphne, are going to be reading out the answers. So we're going to be doing some interactive stuff. So for those of you who didn't catch session 1, I think it's really important that, you know, one of the things, when it's delivered correctly, sales and customer service is exactly the same thing. You know, and again, it's quite interesting coming back to the £200,000 mentoring, you know, is that customer service? I don't know. My ethics and morals would debate that heavily. So what is the content based on? The content is based on my Amazon best-selling and W.H. Smith top 10 business book, Secrets of Successful Sales. I know that after the last session, there was a bit of a surge in sales, so it is available on Amazon, or it's on Spotify too. So what happened, the reason that I wrote the book for two things was I used to work a lot on, again, government funded schemes, Growth Accelerator and growth vouchers, and it was part funding to help small businesses. Again, Stuart and I could probably have a conversation on this, whether we think something will come back to help them. if I was to toss a coin, I would think there would be some more support around part funding to enhance skills. But when the funding was pulled, I thought, well, how can I help people to settle but still sustain my own business, and actually, again, you know, help the people that need me most, who might not have much money, 200 grand for mentoring, not that I charge that. So that's why I wrote the book. So the book itself is based on what I did as a top performer in sales and what the other top performers did. And you know, what drove me to set my own business was, through recession, I realized a lot of small businesses struggled to do things proactively. So when the phone was ringing, they weren't bad at conversion, but they weren't great at being proactive. So that's what I set out to teach. So pillar one was around behaviors. We spoke about treating other people, not how you want to be treated, but how they want to be treated. We talked about adaptation is one of the key things to bringing strong relationships to work, but also staying true to yourself. So you never change your values, but how you interact with people using email, phone, and face-to-face is imperative to how you build the relationship for sales. So the next one is pillar two, the sales process. So again, I did mention it was going to be interactive. So I've got a question for you. If you go to menti.com, that's MENTI.com, the code is 1527402. That's 1527402. And just to see what stage you guys are at, I don't have a sales process. I've got one. It's a little bit erratic, and my sales process is great. I'm right in there, but I could learn a little bit more. So let's just see what's going on in the room. I'm going to click on the cog. It will move off of the slide pack. Don't worry, the code will travel with you. The code 1527402. And this is where we keep our fingers crossed that it all works. Lovely. Stuart, can you see that? Oh, good. Okay, let me just make that be bigger.
Yeah, we can see that.
Perfect. Okay, so we've got a wee bit of a mixed bag. My sales process is great, but I could learn more. My sales process is a wee bit erratic. I don't have a sales process. I think there's about 40 in the room. We'll give it another little bit longer. So if you are struggling to get the code in there, it's 1527.
If it's worth saying, sorry, 1527402. I did it on my iPad, and you can do it on your phone, and it's just as easy if you don't want to sort of lose the what you're on at the moment.
Yeah, I do it on my phone. If I'm doing it, it makes it a wee bit easier. So we've got a wee bit of a mixed bag in here. So what I'll do is I'll try and position the content at different levels where I can. So again, don't have one, got one a bit erratic, and there are some hot people in sales. I can't see you, Cameron Hunter, but I bet you chose that one. Right, back to the slides. So hopefully you can see the slides again. Fingers crossed. Stuart, can we see slides?
Yes, we can. Over.
Okay, right. So we've got a bit of a mixed bag. So let's have a little look. So, I mean, it's quite interesting because when we come to the process, a lot of it is actually understanding why people are buying your product or service, because when you understand why people are buying, it makes it easier to sell. So what I'd like you to do is I'd like to, and again, I'm going to use the chat function. So if Daphne or Olivia can sort of come back up here with some answers. So why do people buy? So if we look at cars, let's look at cars. So the purpose of a car is to go from A to B. So if that's the purpose, then why do some people drive a Jaguar or a BMW or a Tesla? Or again, obviously Tesla's got a different sort of eco things, but why do people drive the highly expensive cars? Can anybody, you can put it in the chat, you can join me in the chat. Let me see if I can see the chat. I can see the chat actually. So
I will start by saying ego.
Okay, yeah, okay, excellent. That is it. So the first buying motive is prestige. And again, interesting, I didn't, comfort, there is that as well, but I would say prestige. You don't spend like 70 grand on a car without wanting people to know that you spent 70 grand on a car. And it's interesting coming back to that mentor thing. Why would, I still am closing my eyes, why would somebody spend 200 grand on a mentor? It's probably to say that they're working with this brand name. So then if we translate that into supermarkets, right? So traditionally your prestige brand would be Waitrose, it would be M&S, it would be, again, those top range. So some people will just buy on brand. But then if we look at supermarkets, and if we think about Aldi and Lidl have done a grand job of really rebranding themselves. But traditionally, why do you think that people would have shopped at Aldi and Lidl? I can see the chat, so I don't need to get Olivia and Daphne. I'm okay, I can see it. So if people, why would you shop predominantly previously on Aldi and Lidl? You can type in the chat. Price, excellent. Oh, I love it. Like, look at you guys, you are fab. Right, okay. So yeah, some people buy on price. And if you have a look, that I think, again, when the economy gets tight, a lot of people will make their decision based on price rather than value. So, but you have to understand why people are buying. Then the next thing, if we have a little look, offers. Catherine, yeah, close to home because you don't have to walk, save on the petrol. But sometimes people will buy on offers. Think about how often you would probably change your brand of things like toothpaste, toilet roll, hand soap, that you walk down the middle aisle and you buy on an offer. So again, you need to think about why your customers buy from you. So the other thing you have got is Heinz ketchup. Loads of people don't ever deviate from their ketchup brand. So, you know, if you have a look at that, sometimes people just buy on continuity. You know, think about somebody that's a website designer. Well, as they go through and they change their businesses, they'll just keep going back to the same person because they've found something that works for them. And again, that's where a lot of that is reactive. So, but what I'd like you to think now, well, I feel like I'm making you all hungry now, right? Jaffa cakes, right? Jaffa cakes, McVitie's Jaffa cakes. So if you think about that as a brand, you know, would you say it's a prestige brand? Yeah, I think you would say that's in orange flavour cakes. I would say McVitie's Jaffa Cakes is the prestige brand. Would you possibly, when you go down the middle, if it was on buy one, get one free, buy two? Oh, is that a cake or a biscuit? I think it's an orange flavoured cake, Stuart. But you would buy one, get one free. And then if you loved Jaffa Cakes, you would just keep buying the Jaffa Cakes. So if you have a look at how they've branded that, but the interesting thing on that is the Jaffa Cake will never be the cheapest one on the shelf, because imagine you're a single parent with 5 children and you want to give your kids a treat. You would go to the bottom shelf and you would get the home brand, the cheaper, the priced one. But it's really interesting because when have you ever been in a supermarket and all you see is people with a trolley full of white label? It's really interesting because you don't really, you know, there will be some people, don't get me wrong, that will only have the home branded stuff. And what I want you to leave on this slide is actually, but everybody tells you that they buy on price. That's not true. And that is an objection that we get a lot of the time, that people say, oh, you know, I want the cheapest one, I want that. They don't, they want value for money. So don't be too keen to drop your pricing. Think about other offers that you could add, like Jaffa Cakes, to maintain the continuity of your customer, but also keep the value. So I'm hoping that makes sense, because that's the bit that a lot of people drop their prices too soon, but actually it's not about dropping your price, it's about adding value. Now this is an oldie, but a goodie. So, you know, we talk about sales and marketing being like golf. We would have covered that last week. And if we have a look at a lot of the business to consumer, so for example, if you sell jewellery online, as a direct online service, to me, that's not sales, that's a marketing function. Again, I think we covered that in pillar 1. If not, it's in the book and I go into more detail. But this triangle is still applicable to business sales. So if you're selling websites, or you're selling like training, or you're selling, you know, whatever it is in a business to business capacity, this triangle will still sit there. But this is one of the things that I see people still sell to the wrong person, if that makes sense. So this is, again, an oldie but a goodie. So if you're trying to get a hold of, let's say, for example, you are trying to sell, we've got the photographer, I've forgotten your name and I can't see you on the screen, but let's look at photography, business to business photography, and say you want to work with, I don't know, is Wrigley's still in Plymouth? I don't know if Wrigley's is still down. Yeah, I'm getting a nod from Helen. Let's say Wrigley's. So you want to do all the headshots for Wrigley's for their website. For example, you've had a look at the website, you think, actually, there's no continuity there. They weren't taken, you know, these guys have all left, these are all dated. I really want to contact them. So I think it's understanding the decision, because if you cold call Wrigley's, and I'm sure this would be how they would work, you'd say, can I speak to the marketing department or the person that deals with the photography? And the gatekeeper who answers the phone, it's their job to buff you off. Yep, can you send an email to nevergoingtohappen.com? Let me repeat that email address back. That's nevergoingtohappen.com. So, you know, what used to work in sales, where we would do like cold calling, you know, I honestly think that gatekeepers are trained to buff you off. So you have to find different ways. Then what you'll have is the influencer. So again, let's use Wrigley's. Oh, Wrigley's is now owned by Mars and the head office is in Reading. You're taking this Tony, that's the photographer, gone through this path himself. But if you have a look, you would really want the marketing department is probably the person that would deal with the photographers. So an influencer to that would probably be one of the marketing assistants or marketing managers. And then the decision maker would maybe even be like the operations director or the finance director, or, you know, so you've got all of these layers. And this is where I think using things like LinkedIn, I mean, LinkedIn, when I started selling, I think I mentioned this the last time, that there was no internet. Well, now not only do we have this thing called the internet, but LinkedIn will tell you all those things. So when you start to make that relationship, but what I see is a lot of people will deal with the marketing assistant, they'll do the sales pitch to the marketing assistant, they'll go for the close, and they'll say, oh, that's lovely. If you just send all that, I'll speak to my boss. And they spend so much time selling to the wrong person and allowing the influencer to be the salesperson for them. So I'm hoping that makes a little bit of sense, but because that's, you know, what I'm sort of highlighting is the gaps that I see. And even at the middle part of the if we said, like, when the opening question, that I don't have a sales process, I do, but it could help, I still see that even at a senior level in sales, selling to the wrong person. Again, if there's any questions in there, just pop the questions in. I know that the girls will ask them at the end. So the sales process, I mean, it's quite interesting because it is an actual process. And people say to me, yeah, like, yeah, but what is the process? Is it getting the cards at the chamber meeting and putting it in my CRM? And yes, that is part of the process, but I think that's more of an operational process, which links into sales process. To me, the sales process is how you conduct the conversation. So again, I am going to use, let's continue through the conversation and try and use like Wrigley's as the example, even though they're owned by Mars and in Reading. But I think it's something that, again, in your area, it will all ring true to you. So I sometimes go out on, well, I did in the old world, go out with my clients to watch their sales conversation. So I listen to them on the phone, or I'll go out face to face and I'll observe what happens. And I think a lot of it is, a lot of people don't know what the process is. And to me, it's like Swan Lake. Like, say, I love sales, and it really, when I watch somebody that can sell, it's like watching the magical dance. And it's like Swan Lake. If you watched it at Sydney Opera House or you watch it in Covent Garden, the steps are exactly the same. It's just that it's in a different venue, and that's knowing how to sell. So if we observe, let's say that you are having a conversation with Wrigley's about the photography. One of the things is being organised and doing your research. So really knowing like when they last had their photographs done, or just a lot about the person that you want to have that conversation with. Because if you can see in the middle, the relationship with the customer, that's the core on how you sell. So if you're late to a call, you don't turn up, if you can't work your Zoom, if that's a red behavior type, you're already breaking the relationship. If you haven't done your research and don't know that Wrigley's is owned by Mars and is now moved to Reading, when you speak to someone, there's no relationship there. So I think, again, a lot of the things with a sales relationship is really understanding, and these things are before you even speak to a customer. The other part of the process, which I do want to touch on, is the 4 W's. And it dumbfounds me. So you've all got homework now, right? This is your task, not now, but when you come off of this call, I want you to have a look at your emails, LinkedIn messages, and any sort of form of communication that you have with your customers, or especially your prospect customers that you're not yet dealing with, because it comes back down to these 4 W's. So, actually, I don't know if this was built down in Plymouth. I don't know if the Titanic ever reached Plymouth. It was Belfast it was built, wasn't it? I hate to spoil you for anybody that hasn't heard. There was a big ship called the Titanic, and it hit an iceberg and it sank, right? So I'd like you to think about the Titanic, right? And imagine you're on the Titanic, no family and no friends, right? You're there on your own. Who would be the first person you would want to save? And I think it's interesting because some of you who saw last week's or 2 weeks ago show will be going, especially if you're a green behaviour, the children, the captain, the band. But Steve says Kate Winslet, or maybe Leo. But ultimately, it is the fight or flight, isn't it? You are in that situation, and ultimately, most of the time we want to save ourselves. And this is where I think, again, people go wrong with their sales messaging, because what they talk about is they talk about themselves, and my business does this, and I help people do that, and I actually, your customers don't really give a damn about you. They only care about themselves and what you can do for them. So again, I would really be having a good look at how you introduce yourself, because who you are, where you're from, and what it's about, but actually what's in it for the customer. And when we do go back, well, I know that the Chamber are actually running networking events currently, but when we do go back to face-to-face, this is something that's really important. And a lot of the time when I teach people to pitch, actually it's leading in with the what's in it for them. So for example, according to Forbes magazine, 90% of startup businesses fail. And the reason they do that is they don't understand sales and marketing. My name is Alison Edgar. I'm the entrepreneur's godmother. I teach sales. Therefore, you can beat that statistic and actually learn to sell and make money in your business. So again, I've led in that, I'm turning the tables, and that's what I do, rather than a lot of it being, and I do websites, and I do photos, and I do this, and I do that. And so many people list what they do, but they miss that connection with what is in it for the other person. Everything you say has to resonate, and that's how you build that relationship stronger. The introduction is something you have to practice. And again, you can do it 2 ways: the linear with the what's in it at the end, because that's the last message you leave. Or if you're doing a pitch and you're marketing, start off with the, what's in it for them. I'm hoping that makes sense. Again, I'll take any questions if there is any. Probably we can do the questions as we go a wee bit further forward, but if you type them in while it's fresh, the girls will give them to me shortly. So the other thing is setting the table, right, guys? Hypothetically, we're all going for dinner. hypothetically, I don't know if you know, but there's a pandemic, we can't go out for dinner, but I want you to think about this in sales, because this is another angle that I think people who have not been fully sales trained struggle with. So I've got a question, and you can type it in the chat. So hypothetically, we're going for dinner. We sit at the table, we're all having the same dinner, right? It's a table d'hôte, it's not an a la carte, we're having the same dinner. And we sit down. On the left hand side, there's a little fork and a big fork. On the right hand side, there's a big knife and a little knife. And at the top, there is a spoon and a fork. So 2 forks, 2 knives, a fork and a spoon. How many course dinner are we having? You can type it in the chat. How many course dinner? 3. Anyone else? 3 course. Rachel says 3 course. 3. Yeah, people are saying 3, 3, 3, 3. Okay, so the purpose of telling you that is we all know what we're doing. And the interesting thing when it comes to sales conversations, I see so many people who don't set the table. Hi, it's Alison Edgar. I'm calling from Sales Coaching Solutions. I noticed that you're on your website and your photos haven't been updated for a while. You know, one of the things is we know that engagement goes up by 20% if people can relate to the people that they see. So what I'd like to do is I'd like to have a conversation just to find out where you are in your thoughts and what's happening with your photography. It's going to take me about 10 minutes. How are you fixed to do that now? Can we do that now? Brilliant, fantastic. And what I'm going to be asking is your direction of your business, the direction of your marketing plan, and what outcomes. Fantastic. So you've told people you've set the table. So, and I'm hoping this resonates, but a lot of the time we have conversations, and for us, we're trying to have a sales conversation. It goes off piste. We're talking about the weather, the pandemic, you know, the fact that we can see the hole in the background. I can't see what your name is, but I'm loving your picture of that. It goes on, like, now you can see that I'm looking at you. I don't know what your name is, but I see your picture. So can you see what I mean? Like literally, that's what can happen in a sales conversation. And then you get to the bit where you really want to try and talk about how your product or service can help them. And they go, well, oh, that's brilliant. It's been really nice talking to you. What is it you want? I've only got a minute and now I have to go. And you think, oh, how did that happen? I was just getting to my turn to say, you know, explain what I could do to help them, and they have to go. It's because you haven't set the table. So again, really having a clear structure, a clear agenda, a clear outcome. Mention the fact that you know, I'm going to be talking about costs and profits in your business. The reason is it will see how I can position, you know, my offering to make sure it works for you. Because sometimes when you start to have that conversation about money and costs, the people say, I don't know why you want to know that. Why do you want to know that? Nosy bitch. Sorry. Whatever it is, but you know what I mean? It's that kind of thing. Whereas if you've set it up front, there is that expectation of how the direction. And also if you come back to dancing, it's really imperative you as the salesperson or the business owner leads the dance. If the client's off on another planet, then they're leading the dance and you will struggle to close that sale. So hopefully that makes sense. Setting the table. So we'll cover the Titanic and setting the table. Now, we're going to play another wee interactive game here, as well as Amy, we've got the cheese. I love a bit of cheese. Don't tell the diet that. Right, I'm looking right down the camera, right at all of you. This is the most important thing you can learn. If you take nothing from any of these sessions, apart from not spending 200 grand on a mentor, think about this part here. So, there will be people in the audience who have children, but there will also be, I'm hoping everyone in the audience has been a child. So I want you to think about, you know, when you were 2 or 3 years old, or when your child or your grandchild was 2 or 3, feels like I still am, and think about their development. Think about how you develop as a child. And you know, children are born to be inquisitive. That's how they learn. That's how we form. And one of the questions that they ask is why. Now, again, I want you to reflect on that. If you have got children or grandchildren or have ever been a child, who taught you to ask why? We were born to ask why. We were born because As children, we're little sponges and we get information, and that is how we learn. But then what happens again, sorry for anybody in education, but when we become 4 or 5, we go to school and the ratio expands. And it's interesting for anybody that's homeschooling, because this is a really good time to flip the coin for your children, because when they're on a one-to-one with you or granny, or even at nursery, when a child says why, especially at the beginning, you're so pleased they can talk that you will give them an answer. You know, oh, put on your shoes, we're going to the shops. Why? Because there's no milk, because it's finished, because daddy drank it. Why? But when they go to a ratio of 1 to 30, we become quashed. Can I? Will I? Please, may I? Become polite, and the way we ask our questions moves from open questions to closed questions. Honestly, I cannot reiterate how important this is. So if you think about the open questions, who, what, why, where, when, how, who, what, why, where, when, how, and this again is your homework. I've already given you homework. Have a look at your LinkedIn messages, have a look at your emails, and think back to your conversations. Would you like a one-to-one? Would you like a coffee? Would you like me to send you an email? Would you like me to do this? And you wonder why people don't reply. You know, what's your thoughts on this? What do you see as the next steps? When are you available to have a conversation to discover more about what you're doing in the direction of your business? When are you available to have a call to see what I can do to help you? When? You know, who, what, why, where, when, how? And again, you know, I reiterate, when it's delivered correctly, sales and customer service is exactly the same thing. You've got to build the relationship to earn that right to have a coffee, especially with a red, because they will struggle to see the purpose. But I really, if you're not taking notes on that, write this down. Who, what, why, where, when, how. Who, what, why, when, how. And we're going to play a wee game. So we are going to use the chat. I have got the chat open, I can see. And I want you to think about, I've got a famous person in my head, okay, and also on the next slide. So I have to make sure I don't go forward. And what I'd like you to do, you cannot ask me, who are you? Because that is cheating, right? I want you to ask me open questions to try and identify who I am, because literally that's what we do in sales. You identify what the client needs and can you match it? And if you can match it, that's when you can sell. So I would like you to ask me open questions to try and determine, right, okay, I'm going to stop. Right, Stuart, are you male? Is that an open or closed question, Stuart? That's a closed question. I'm not answering that one. Okay, Tony asked me, how old are you? I'm 40-ish, in my 40s. Where are you from? I'm from England. What gender do I identify with? Boom, see, again, flipping a closed into an open question. I am male. Why did you choose this person? Because they're famous, and I'm hoping that everybody knows. What are you famous for? Good question. See, Catherine, good question, because it now starts to open me up into conversation so that you can identify, and again, in this, who the person is. In sales, what the need is. So what am I famous for? Sport. Sport. Why did I become famous? Because I was very good at it. Sport. So again, oh, brilliant. Chaz, love it. You see, you're listening to what I'm saying and you're positioning the next one in. The sport is football. So again, it's interesting, right? So I could be anybody, right? So this answer to that was Manchester United, LA Galaxy. What position did I play? Number 7. But is what I really want you to, I'm English. I'm going to stop questions now, because actually it's really interesting. So congratulations to Rachel and also to Stuart. But that was a good guess. I could have been Wayne Rooney. I could have been anyone. I could have been anyone. And this, I love you both for putting David Beckham up there, because actually that's what we do in sales. We jump in too quick. We're trying to solve the issue without getting right down into what the challenge is. So again, you need to make sure the customer comes up, because what they'll do is they'll say, maybe I need a new website. Okay, well, why do you think I need a new website? Well, I haven't had a new website since 2015. Okay, so how is that affecting your business? Well, I think that it affects the SEO, so I don't come up high on Google. And why is that important to you? Because, you know, we struggle to do outbound sales. We like to get inbound. Okay, and what's the average value of the leads that you have, and why does that happen? And what are you looking to, how many leads are you looking to generate over the next 12 months? And blah, 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 blah. Good open questions, because what you can then do, if you do websites, but you do SEO and you do Google AdWords and Facebook AdWords, the customer might have thought that they needed a website, but actually the customer will tell you that eventually, if you ask the right questions, that they need a website and Google AdWords and SEO and Facebook ads. So instead of selling a website for $1,000, they then identified, they're telling you that they need more. Does that make sense? But again, when we jump in with the David Beckham, when it could be Wayne Rooney or Kevin Keegan, oh, I'm showing my age now. Do you know what I mean? So I think, thank you so much, because I love it when people jump in quick. But you are right. It is my lovely, handsome friend, David Beckham. So again, your homework, because there's no point in coming in on these webinars if you're not going to take action. You really need to look at some really good, poignant questions that backload into what you sell. But what you should have is a good killer question at the start. So what prompted you to contact me today? What challenges do you have with your brand imaging? You know, again, a really good open question at the start of the conversation means that they talk. And when they talk, they give you information. And having information, in the words of my friend Snap, you've got the power. So many people lead in with, and I do this, and I do that, and they do all the talking. That's not how you sell. And again, I think it's really important, because listening, who, I think it was Chaz, it was, what sport, you know, and then, you know, we laid in that it was sport, then listened to sport, and then funneled in further on the question. Does that make sense? Listen to what they say, and then all you're doing is positioning the next question in. And it is that thing, 2 ears, 1 mouth, but you know, what does that mean? It's that's a nice phrase, but it's about the skills that come around it. So again, I've just sort of covered that off. And then it's only then that when you understand that you can start to sell. And again, this is what I see all the time, that so many people, and I do this, and I do that, and I do the next thing. Actually, I'm on the Titanic. I don't care about what you do. I care about what you can do for me. So it's, again, if you look at the process, and this is the formula, the magical dance, only when the customer's told you, like, I'm really struggling because I don't come up at the top of Google. I really struggle because I don't get as many inbound leads as I want. Actually, my customers hang out on Facebook, and you know, my conversion rate is quite low because the quality of the leads are low. That's when you draw the line in the sand and you confirm all that back. So you've told me A, B, C, D, and E. Is that correct? So who can tell me in the chat, because I have got it open, why did I move there from all these open questions that I've been preaching about to a closed question? Why have I moved at this stage to say A, B, C, D, E? Is that correct? To get the yes, Tony, yeah, to understand. So yes, that's correct, because it means that you're on the same page. You know, we've all finished our dessert in our main course. Sorry, we've not finished our dessert. We've all finished our starter in our main course. Now it's time to move on to the dessert. You know, that's what we do at the table, isn't it? It's rude to move on until we're all at the same stage in the dinner. And think about that in sales. To get but in, buy not but. Yeah, okay. So they draw the line in the sand. So it's interesting. So of this part here, what percentage of the time do you think that the client should be talking, and what percentage of the time should you be talking? So down to the clarification question, give me a percentage of the client talking. 80-20, yeah. Yeah, 80-20, 80-20. Oh, brilliant. I love it. 80-20. Oh, hello, Helen Hart. It's so interesting. Actually, Helen's read my book. Helen does books. I think Anne has too. So it is 80-20. But what I'd like you to really reflect, are you doing that? Are you doing it? Because when I'm watching and listening to people's calls, they don't. Okay. And this is the other line. So we now move into the part, and this feeds back into the Titanic. Features tell, benefits sell. So I do sales training, that's a feature. I do sales coaching, another feature. The benefit is that actually knowing these skills will increase your sales and put more money on your top line. The benefit of coaching is after training, 80% of the content evaporates. The benefit of having coaching, it means you make the habit forming changes, which will mean that you will habitually be able to follow the process to make more sales. So again, you're not hearing the fact that I do sales training, sales coaching, you're hearing what I can do for you. Again, more homework, guys, very important. And then summarizing and committing, we've already done that. Do you know, so when I do a course, like a live course, I set the objectives at the end, and I absolutely adore it, because when I say, well, what do you want out of the course today? And loads of people will say to close more sales. And I literally do a mini fist bump, because the reason most people can't close is they have never opened. Because if you look, and this is where, if you look at every single stage of the sale, so having a call with a client, that's, you're closing that appointment. Having a second call and putting that in the diary, that's also a close. And then obviously, you know, contract or getting the money into the bank, that's a close. But I think if you look at every stage and celebrate every stage, it really helps you. So, you know, you've got different, you know, for me, my favorite is the assumptive close. So basically what I'll do is I'll just say, like, you know, when do you want me to start? When do you want me to send the contract? When do you want me to do that? So, you know, these are the options to close. But it's interesting because most people have close at the center and they try and close too soon. So we've got 4 minutes left and we're going to move into Q&A, but I think negotiation is a subject that always comes up. But the secret is you can always negotiate down, but you can't negotiate up. So if you know, again, coming back to your website designer, you know, if you know that what the client needs is the website, the SEO, the Google AdWords, the Facebook adverts, if actually that's not in budget, then what you can say, look, these are all the things you need. But what we can do is we can do the website first and do the SEO. And then what we can do, we can add the other parts on in another few months. So again, you never lead on the price, you take away some of the value and you can go back. I'm hoping that makes sense. And then, you know, it's interesting because a lot of people with their prospecting do not follow up. And it's interesting, you know, from a chamber perspective, you meet people, but 48% of people don't follow up. And then they go on and they make another contact and then they stop. But 85% of sales, and this is quite an old statistic, but you know what, I think the point of this, maybe the statistic numbers have changed, but the follow-up still remains quite weak. And then test intention. This is another question I get asked a lot. Well, come on, these people have been in my pipeline for ages, Alison, and I can't get them to close, and I don't know whether they want to buy, or, you know, there's a lot of query around how do you move people from your pipeline that have been kicking around for a long time, especially the green behaviors, because they don't like to tell you no. So again, if you've got, this is other homework, if you have people in your pipeline. Hi Stuart, it's Alison Edgar. The purpose of the call today is just to find out where you are in your thought process to working with me, just for some clarification. If Stuart, to make it a bit easier, if 1 means that this is never going to happen, and 5 means like we're ready to start and you want to put the start date in the diary, where are you on a scale of 1 to 5? And ideally you want them to say 5. If they say 1, then you would be asking, that's great, thank you for letting me know. You know, what can we do to move it to a 5? Actually, Alison, there's nothing because the budget's been slashed. Okay, I'm at a 3. Okay, what can I do? Well, there's somebody else that's given us a quote and they're giving us different things. Okay, let's have a look at the quotes and see what we can do to help get you what you want with the compared to what they're doing. So again, test intention is a brilliant way to shut that down. I've probably got about 2 minutes left. So what I'm going to do, this is the sales process. Again, if you've got the book, you will know this. If it's not, it's on Amazon or it's on Spotify, but this is what you need to know. And this is where I can prove, I've got a wee secret, right? I do customer service training too. And actually the slide pack is exactly the same, apart from the intro and test and resolve the issue, word for word, I train the same stuff. And that's why, in the words of my good friends, the Spice Girls, when it's delivered correctly, sales and customer service is exactly the same thing, to become one. And that leads me, I think I am bang on time actually, Stuart. So I will take the slides down and I will take any questions that anybody has got.
Thank you, Alison. Judging by the amount of chat and engagement, people really understood that and got a lot out of it. And I certainly did. And you said a couple of things that really resonated with me. I mean, one, why being the most powerful question. I was taught that as a police detective. You know, all the what and the when and everything, that is a matter of fact. But the why gets you the answer you want. It's always why. So if you're ever stuck in a dilemma, just ask yourself why. And when I first left school, I was selling cars, would you believe? And I was taught by Citroen to do the bit at the end where you say, if you were to buy this car, what color would you have it? And what interior would you like? And what radio would you like? And people start to picture themselves in the car with that around them and getting them to say, yes, yeah, oh yeah, I like that, yes. And then before they know it, they've already decided what they want. So that was fantastic. Questions for Alison? Either raise your virtual hand in the participants function or put something in the chat. There must be questions, unless that was so comprehensive that nobody's got a single question. I asked someone privately in the chat actually that if you know, when someone calls you asking what prompted you to get in touch is a good opening question, but when you're calling them as a sort of cold prospect, what's the good opening question?
So again, I think I would avoid that cold prospecting because I don't think it's 1984. I don't think we need to do that. I would be having that, you know, trying to build that relationship on LinkedIn and then get it off LinkedIn. And I'll give you an example. Next week, or not next week, on the next session we do strategy and I talk about snog, marry, avoid. You see, I've got a wee Alison Edgarism for everything. But if you've got somebody that you want to marry, hypothetically, by reaching out to them on LinkedIn, and I'll give you an example, right? So thank you for all the lovely comments about the book, by the way. One of the things, as I was talking to Stuart offline, so the new book comes out in May and I have to get myself on TV. I would need to be on the sofa of This Morning, Lorraine, Radio 2, and it's not because I want to be famous and be on there, but I know what I teach works and I know what I teach changes lives. So it's my duty to try and put myself out there. And one of the things is I'm pitching for my own TV show. So again, that's the same. Like it's not that I've moved away. I still sell. I still have to bring in money, but I am proactive. So there's a company that create a show called, and you'll know the show, it's Gogglebox. So the production company, as my hypothetical marry list, I want to be in contact with the head of development for all these channels. So again, he's not active on LinkedIn, but I said, oh, hi, I love your shows. Again, I did the research, was organized, love the shows that you produce, be really good to connect. So he took the connection request and I said, oh, like, I'm a big fan of Gogglebox. I love whatever it is, you know, whatever I said, it'd be great to stay in touch. And he came back and said, yes, Alison, that's brilliant. So already you're taking that sort of movement across. And I've got an idea. I've partnered up with one of the apprentice winners and a fashion designer, right? So I've got a really good idea for a show to help people get jobs. Anyway, the guy had his number in his bio and it's 8:30 in the morning. And I thought, you know, like, what's the worst that's going to happen? The worst that's going to happen, if you do that, they're going to say no, right? Or, you know, don't stalk me, don't phone me again, or that. But people don't, you know, they're not going to do that if you position the call correctly. So I phone him up and go, hi, it's Alison Edgar, we're LinkedIn. So again, you've already got that relationship because they'll go, oh yeah. And whether they know you or not, people are not going to challenge that. So we're LinkedIn, love the works you do at the studio. I've got an idea for a show, would love to have a chat with you. You know, how are you fixed for 5 minutes? He said, I'm making my breakfast. And I went, great, you make your breakfast and I'll pitch the show. So do you know what I mean? Whereas if I'd have phoned up the production company and said, can I speak to the person that deals with the development, I'd have got, can you send it to nevergonnahappen.com? So I do believe it's the same, but what's in it for them? I've got a show that's really topical and will help people get jobs. And I think you'd be a great production company to work with. That's what's in it for them. It's topical and you're going to get viewers to watch the show. So again, I hope that kind of answers it. I've done it through my world, but people should be able to translate that into their world.
That is really fascinating. And just plugging my podcasts again, I am available for voiceover work. And I won't say, and Alison. Those who don't ever watch Gogglebox will wonder what I'm talking about. But
no, I get that one. Yeah. It's the guy from the royal family, isn't it?
Oh, he's got a really annoying voice. Anyway, so one question I have, sorry, and I know we're just going to overrun really slightly, and please everyone, if you have to go, we won't be offended. Don't feel because we're overrunning slightly that you can't dip out if you've got other meetings. But because of my role, I get connected with a lot of people on LinkedIn, and unless they're claiming to be a Nigerian prince, I tend to just yes, because I don't want to offend anyone. But I also, as a result, get bombarded with sales calls for things that are completely irrelevant, and I largely ignore most of them. How do you engage early on LinkedIn? How do you get someone to actually, how do you get through that filter of, oh, I'm just deleting anything that's even remotely sales related?
Well, there's a lot of automation on LinkedIn and it is like just spam. But I think it's, again, it depends on the behavior type. Like we teach LinkedIn in color. So if that's a red, you've got to kind of cut to the chase. You can't like, oh, I want to do coffee or I want to have a chat. I need to know what you want. My time is precious. What do you want to chat about? You know, actually, I've had a look and I see that you are doing, I've had a look at your posts and I see that you talk about personal motivation. One of the things that I'd like to develop more around in my offering is and we integrate together to help personal motivation in what I'm supplying. I think it'd be really good to have a 20-minute call to discuss this when you're available. You need to be a wee bit more generic about what, you know, specific rather than generic about what you want, or people will just think, oh God, another one of those spammy messages from LinkedIn. So, you know, and I think the reason you do that, going back to the sales process, is really dig into their profile. You know, oh, I see that you used to work for BT. Oh, I was BT trained, or I see that you wanted, I've looked at your testimonials and I see that you know Helen Hart, that she's read your book. Oh my, it would be really good to have a conversation to see, you know, how we could do not do something together, because again, doing something together has still got that implication that they're going to try and sell to you and they're going to try and throw their products in. Think about the Titanic. How can you turn that message around to something that's in it for them? And again, I'm not a fan of automation. Everything we do on LinkedIn, we do direct. And I know there's somebody in the room that did DM me, and I promise I'll DM you back, but I have to go. I get a lot of messages and it sometimes gets a bit crowded. So, but I do try and go back to everybody personally and respond.
That's great. Thank you. Helen, did you want to come in and say something then?
Well, yeah, I just wanted to say that when you were talking about features and benefits, Alison, oh, I am unmuted. I suddenly thought, panic.
No, we can hear you. It's okay.
Yeah. When you were talking about features and benefits, one of my very early mentors and coaches regarding sales had this specific example that he always talked about, and it's stuck with me forever. And it's an example of selling a vacuum cleaner. So you're selling a vacuum cleaner and you're telling them about the small and compact nature of the vacuum cleaner, and it's got a great long hose and extends, I don't know how many meters. It's got a really modern motor that's got higher power than everything else. It's like, yeah, and what? So, you know, but it's about, well, the small and compact nature of the machine means that it's easy to maneuver, it's easy to store. It's, you know, it's much lighter for you. The long hose means you can reach easily into all those little corners and grooves and so on that you couldn't do otherwise, and so on. And the fact that this, you know, fantastic motor means that it's quiet, it's efficient, it picks up things from more effectively. And it's one of those things that's always stuck with me.
Yeah.
As simple as it is.
I'm going to take it a step further than that, because again, this is where if you know what the benefits are, you backload the questions and you only talk about the things that are relevant. Because if you say to them, you know, what challenges do you have with getting the cobwebs in the corners? And they say, nothing, the cleaner does that for me, I don't have to do that. Then you don't have to talk about that. Do you know what I mean? And this is where, if you look at car sales, like come back to Citroen, they're really brilliant. Like, what's the 3 things that are important to you with a car? What's the 3 things that are important to you about the vacuum cleaner? And then they'll give you, well, I need space under the cupboard for the stairs. I want to make sure that the pile comes back up so I don't have to buy new carpets. And that's where you match. It's just matching. And again, a lot of the times people will give the benefits, but it's not a relevant thing to the person, but it's because they haven't asked enough questions at the start. So I agree, but I think it's even further than that, to go even further in on the questions.
That's wonderful. Thank you so much.
Was there a question from Scott? He does do websites. What does that one say?
I read it. It wasn't a question as much as an observation about getting to what the customer really needs, and then finding you can actually save them money from what they thought they needed, and therefore keeping them happy.
That sounds like great customer service, doesn't it? Sure.
Yeah, exactly. Delivering what the customer wants, not what you want to sell. Lots of very kind comments. Thank you, everyone. Thank you, Alison. Another fabulous event. Really enjoy these. And we've got one more, of course, in a couple of weeks' time. So I hope you're all registered for that. And we'll share the good news and the love on social media. We will end now, but thank you so much, everyone, for joining us. And thanks for staying on for the last few minutes. Really appreciate it. Have a great day. Stay safe, and we'll see you soon. Thank you, everyone.
Bye, everyone. See you next time.